welcome back to yet another edition of Behind the Lens. I am film critic, creator, and host of Behind the Lens, Debbie Elias. You can find my movie reviews and interviews online and in print around the globe 24/7 on the BehindTheLensOnline.net website. But then every Monday, you will find me right here on Adrenaline Radio at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time with Behind the Lens. Last week, we kicked off year 4. Great guest. 2 great guests. Steve Alaric. I think that was Steve's 4th time here or something. He'll be back for more. Ladies, don't worry. He will be back for more. And also, Vivian DeCursey talking about her film Dare to be Wild, which is out there now. And it's a wonderful, wonderful film based on the life of gardener Mary Bennett. And if you really want some interesting reads, Mary Bennett has also written books about wildflower gardening. So, that's with spring coming. I know in Los Angeles, it was in the 80s this weekend, so people were thinking gardening. But for a really intriguing story, check out Dare to be Wild. But talk about some intriguing stories. We have some very wonderful guests coming on the show today. Starting with, at the quarter-hour mark, we're going to have Santino Panico calling. Any of you sports fans out there might remember Santino. He was an incredible high school football player, went to the University of Nebraska, but then his body just gave out on him, and his play was so atrocious he was actually booed in the hometown stadium. That sent Santino on a journey to find out what was wrong with him. Somebody who'd been so physically fit, who was such a competitive athlete at the top of his game, what happened? And in his search, he learned all about proteins and learned all about shaping the body, satisfying the body, but also how you can become a vegan, somebody eating with a plant-based diet, and still be a competitive athlete. He has produced, written, directed, and also done editing on From the Ground Up. It is one of the most fascinating documentaries. I knew nothing about this going into it. I had a basic idea of what veganism was, as opposed to being a vegetarian, as opposed to being a meat eater. But Santino takes us into the world of all of these athletes who are vegans and gets some really eye-opening discussion. And he sets it in the framework of his own training. He wasn't playing football anymore. He needed athletics of some sort. He gives himself 111 days to train for the New York Marathon. And we follow this journey and learn and hear from all of these other competitive athletes, including some professional football players, bodybuilders, surfers, skiers, skateboarders, world champions, who have this lifestyle and discipline. So it's really very interesting. So I can't wait to talk to Santino, because this was also his first film. So he's going on 2 journeys here. He's journeying through the world of being a vegan and training to be a competitive athlete again, but he's also journeying through the world of directing a film from the ground up. So I look forward to talking to him. And of course, and at the half-hour mark, I'm so thrilled to have these 2 people on Behind the Lens today. Dana NACHMAN, Don Hardy. You know their work. Bat Kid Begins. I had the pleasure of moderating a Q&A with Dana at ArcLight a couple years ago during the Bat Kid Begins frenzy. She's back with Don, and they have another championship pick here, which is just as compelling, just as engaging, will make you go, oh, so cute. It is called Pick of the Litter, and it is a documentary that takes us on the journey of these 5 puppies who are bred and are trained to become guide dogs through Guide Dogs for the Blind. When you see this documentary, it is premiering at Slam Dance tonight. So we're going to talk to Dana and Don before the world premiere of Pick of the Litter tonight. I'm very thrilled, especially after seeing this documentary. As comes as no surprise, they both being editors, with Don directing and Dana also directing, but Dana pretty much writing and being responsible, I think, for the through line of the documentary. I can't wait to talk to them about putting this little gem together. It is guaranteed to steal the hearts of everybody that sees it. You will fall in love with all 5 of these pups as you watch them grow and train over the course of 3 years. So I'm very excited about all 3 of our guests today. But before we get to them, last week we started with started to play a part of my exclusive interview with Alexander Desplat, who won the Golden Globe for Best Score for The Shape of Water, who we anticipate will pick up an Oscar nomination for the film, for his scoring for Shape of Water as well. But we had to cut his interview because we had Vivian DeCourcy calling from London, and we didn't want to keep her on hold. So let's backtrack, let you finish hearing clip number 1 of my interview with Alexander, talking about creating the score for The Shape of Water.
I hope people will love it too here, because they loved it in London, they loved it in Venice, but I don't know about the American audience. Are they ready for love?
It's
because love is not in the air. More about hate and pointing at people, and so I hope it gets through.
I mean, it is, for my money, it is a masterpiece.
It is. Oh, there's no doubt. You're absolutely right. I have the same
cinematography,
sensation.
The use of color, and
camera moves.
The camera moves, and that's something. And Sydney's editing.
Yeah.
Between
yes.
the cinematography, the editing, and the score. These 3 things are in such synergy with this film, because we have our main character who does not speak, which is why we then need score to fill in those moments. We see that also with Wonderstruck, with Todd Haynes' movie, for the silent portions because of a deaf girl. But here, I mean, granted, Eliza's doing sign language and punctuating things with force and effect, but still, our sensory experience needs to hear something, and that's where your score comes in. And I have to say, it is so beautiful.
Thank you.
You have whimsy in there with the scenes with the hard-boiled eggs, like little tinkling sounds, like a triangle, or it's just, and then we get the romantic, epic swoon and sweep. And we have the chase, the tension, of the Russians and torture and the fluidity that you've put all this together with. The score flows like the water flows.
Well, you just said what I was looking for, the water. Just writing for, and the movie flows. So I just have to put a little boat on it, and it does. That's the way it is, like on a stream in the street, when there's water.
Yeah.
So you put a little boat. Well, it's the same. The music can, I couldn't say it's easy because it's not easy, it's a lot of work, but it's easier because it's calling for music, as you said, because of the unspoken emotions, the restrained emotions, and because the beauty of every shot is moving, and because the way the script is so well organized, and as you say, the flow of the editing, there's not one steady shots, everything is in motion, and the music is in motion also. It goes from A to Z, and so this chronological flow is just amazingly inspirational for me.
Now, did you come on board after the film was finished?
I read the script a long time ago. But
how does your impression, if you read the script and you start getting ideas for how you might score something, but then you actually see picture lock?
Well, that's where I start. The script doesn't really give me. It usually gives me wrong directions. Because the visual is the visual. If I write musical film, it's because of the visual, because of cinema, not of paper. Well, if the script is not good, I hope I can tell, or if it's incomplete, or if it's really, really great.
Then you may be busy when it comes time to
But
do the score.
that's the thing.
Yeah.
No, well, but also, while I'm reading a script, I'm doing another score for another film. So it's hard for me I can vaguely anticipate, but not really. It's really when I see, and when you see a film like this one coming towards you, there's moments in your life where you're being offered these experiences. When I saw A Girl with a Pearl Earring, or when I saw King's Speech, or when I saw Benjamin Button, or The Queen, or I don't know, some films like that, you're given these moments of cinema that you've devoted your life to with passion and joy. So when this came to me in January, I was like a child in a candy store. It's just that's what I'm doing movies for. That's for this type of film.
When you saw the film, how do you start? How do you approach developing the score?
Well, there's conversations with Guillermo. I know he wants a score that is European. Okay, good pick. Good pick. Which means that he doesn't want me to follow the action, frame by frame. He wants me to be more in the nouvelle vague type of scoring, which is getting into the dramaturgy and not getting into the images. The images inspire you, but it's the story that should create the score, not the images. And so I start by watching the opening scene on and on. This opening scene underwater, where all the room is floating. So it's magical, it's warm, it's fragile, it's delicate. There's a movement, and I try to put that into music.
But yeah, and the movement of the water is very key because it's also very slow, very languid movement. It matches the budding relationship between the creature and Eliza. And of course, then we get the whole explosion of water coming through the door after the bathroom scene. And the music there just takes you.
Yeah.
And it's just so beautifully done. And you have specific themes in here for characters.
Yes, of course. There's Elisa's theme. There's the love theme, which is connected to Elisa's theme.
Right.
Which actually alternate from her theme to the love theme with the same bridge. There's a motif for the creature. A motif for the Russian spy.
Right.
A 5/4 motif, and that's about it actually. And I play around with that. There's no motif for Strickland for the torturer because his performance is strong enough. He doesn't need anything. Not that the others are not strong, but they're restrained or unspoken. He doesn't need.
Because he speaks loudly enough.
Loud. He's so strong, so brutal that his brutality is his language. It's his music. So as we go through the film, the score is very gentle and intimate at the beginning, with just a few elements of the orchestra. And as we go, of course, I use that, but sometimes I can expand it to make it larger, deeper, stronger, more depth of field, and use more of the orchestra. There's no woodwinds except for 12 flutes. That's what gives us this blurred underwater tone at the beginning. The whistle, the accordion, which is played with the sound as a bandoneon, and what he plays is actually like bandoneon tango, like arpeggios or scales of phrasing, because he comes from South America, the creature, and I wanted to find something that would harken. And consciously, because it's not, I'm not doing samba. No. But it's just a unconsciously, there's something exotic about what the recording is doing. There's some piano, Fender piano, so all this is very, very watery. And I bring the French horns and the brass and the strings to expand as we go further in the film.
And that was just part of my interview with Alexander Desplat. We may have more of that at the end of the show today, or the whole entire interview will be up on my website tomorrow. So, and you can hear. And with Alexander, I want you to hear rather than me just, give you a written transcription, a prosaic writing of the interview, because he does like to whistle and hum and make sound effects to describe the various passages within his scoring. And it is a joy to listen to him do that. So, but right now, we are going to go and welcome Santino Panico to Behind the Lens. Hello, Santino.
Hi, Debbie. How are you?
I am so thrilled to be talking to you.
I'm thrilled to be talking to you. Thank you.
I can't believe, first of all, I am so sorry that I had a conflict. Annie had asked me to moderate your Q&As for the premiere of the film in LA back in November. And I was already committed elsewhere, and I couldn't do it. And I so wanted to, because this documentary is so amazing. It is so educational, and it's entertaining at the same time. So I'm so thrilled that I can have you on the show today.
Well, thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here, and I appreciate you, telling me you could moderate. No worries on that, though. Conflicts always come up, but it would have been great to have you to moderate. Thank you.
Well, I'm thrilled to have you now because, as I said, number one, you've got two journeys going on here. You're going on this journey training for the New York Marathon. You're going on a journey of exploration with elite athletes who have become vegan. You're also journeying as a first-time filmmaker. There's a lot of traveling going on here, Santino.
Yes, ma'am. In life, it seems that everything's always converging. So, I wanted to do something different from my master's degree and from the work I was doing with a consultant firm. So I figured I could inspire people with the film. There's a lot of problems in society today, and anthropogenic climate change, several health crises in America, and, the way we just treat animals in general. And I figured, what better way to send home the message of plant-based eating than utilizing elite athletes. And then at the same time, I figured, I've been an athlete my whole life, but I've never really done anything from a competitive standpoint as an athlete. So I've always been terrified of when people say, "Oh, I run marathons." I'm like, you're crazy. You're out of your mind. I couldn't fathom running 26.2 miles when I played college football and I was in an anaerobic sport. So I figured I'd just marry the three and try to get after it as best as I could.
Well, you certainly have done an amazing job. I'm really curious how you approached the making of From the Ground Up, from a filmmaking standpoint, because you know how to approach things from an athletic standpoint. You learned how to approach things as you shifted your eating habits into a plant-based diet. What kind of disciplines did you employ as you embarked on this filmmaking? Because you're doing you're editing, you were writing, you were directing, eventually you're editing, and I'm sure a lot of that has to do with the fact that you knew in your head what you wanted to do. But you had to develop a through line to carry us through here, and that's not always easy. So
it's interesting. With this film, it could have gone a couple different ways. I could have focused on, 2 or 3 athletes and could have gone on the kind of conventional, if you've ever watched HBO's 24/7 when a boxer has a fight, in a month's time, and they do kind of a, day by day of the life in the boxer leading up to the fight. I could have picked, 3 or 4 athletes and kind of followed them on a current journey. It just could have gone so many different ways, but I didn't want it to be conventional like that, because I see a lot of documentaries that are, cinema verite, and there's not a lot of cinematic elements in it. So what I wanted to do was try to marry the two, kind of have a cross between a cinema verite documentary and then some cinematic elements with the cinematography, so to speak. And I just felt like I wanted to have a diverse group of people. I wanted there to be gender diversity. I wanted there to be white, black, Latino. I wanted to show that, there's a common misconception that people have of vegans as being middle class, wealthy white males. And I think that slowly but surely that's kind of changing, that thought process. And I just wanted to try to have as many characters of a diverse background as possible. And I figured that I could utilize my own story training for the marathon as the through element, and then have these athletes fill in the gaps of the three, main reasons as why an athlete would want to be vegan or vegetarian when all the counterparts, in sports, we're always taught that to be bigger, to be stronger, to be faster, you have to get your protein, and it has to come from animal sources. So I wanted to show the diverse group of athletes and try to hit home that, anybody can do this, whether you're a weekend warrior or a national champion.
And you back this up, you have medical experts also who, really, and what you achieve with them is they're speaking in layman's terms so anybody can understand it. It's not a lot of medicalese speak.
Right. So Dr. Michelle McMacken, she's one of our primary experts in terms of the medical field. And when I first, she was also one of the first people that believed in me on this project. Part of the problem in making a film is when you have a kind of poor pitch deck and you don't have a website and you're no name, it's hard to get people on board. And I had to kind of sell myself with the passion that I have for this. And Dr. McMacken, was all for it from the start. And one of the things that I had talked to her about prior to interviewing her was one of the things I think she does really well. She's an internal medicine physician, and she's an assistant professor of medicine at the New York School of Medicine, but she doesn't talk over you or talk, above you in a way where you're like, oh, what am I hearing here? She tries to give it to you in layman's terms, and it's very soothing to hear it from her because she helps you kind of understand things without being overwhelmed by information. And I made that clear. I wanted her to, I had seen some things she had written. I had seen some small interviews of her, and I really loved how she was able to get this information across without making it scary, without making it in a way where you have to look things up because you don't know what's being talked about. And she delivered. She was so key and so wonderful to work with.
And what you very keenly did in the editing process is you broke everything up. So you've got, much like your pacing should be in a marathon, you pace us well with the documentary, with medical, interviews, with Gene Bauer, the co-founder of Farm Sanctuary, what he had to tell us and show us and explain to us about factory farming, and then all of your athletes. You really found a wonderful pacing with your editing. Was that challenging for you, especially given the number of interview subjects you have?
Yes, it was very challenging, I have to say. Pacing kind of, the reason that somebody would be vegan or vegetarian is for their health, for the environment, or for the ethical treatment of animals. That's the three main reasons. If you know anything about plant-based eating, that's common knowledge. And I wanted to break it up like that from the start, but the challenge was kind of weaving in the elements of, okay, how does a marathon fit into getting from, the ethical treatment of animals, then to health, then to the environment. And it was a lot of trial and error. I'm a first-time filmmaker. I put my own money into this. I was editing it with my director of photography, Mike Call. We didn't play by anybody else's rules, so I was able to make mistakes. I showed this to over 1,500 people in marketing test groups prior to being comfortable to put it out. And there's several iterations of it, but the whole idea was to try to get this message across in a way that felt inclusive. I did not want to do anything to alienate people. That was part of my reasoning for not showing a dead animal on screen. I think that, you know, I thought about my father a lot while making this movie, and I needed my dad, you know, he's a Southside Chicago guy and Italian. I needed him to get through the movie. You know, I'm glad and grateful for all the vegans that have backed me on this and gone to bat for me, but I really wanted to try to get this in front of people that maybe need a little nudge. They want to eat a little healthier, maybe go meatless Mondays, or, you know, cut processed meats out of their diet. You know, because every little thing counts. It's not necessarily about being perfect. You know, because too often in society, we try to have the perfect body, the perfect diet. It doesn't work like that because there's no such thing as perfection. That's a myth. You can strive for it, but you can never have it. So with the movie, I wanted people to feel like it's okay to be vegan or vegetarian. You know, if you want to do it 5 days a week or 4 days a week or 7 days a week, but there's no such thing as perfection. And I think that's the beauty of it. There's a lot of imperfection in the movie, and that's how documentaries are supposed to be, I think.
Well, I mean, everybody, even though these are elite athletes that you're talking to, for the most part, they're just like they're anybody you would meet on the street, anybody you'd run into in the grocery store, anybody you'd run into in a gym. Tori Washington, amazing, you know, bodybuilder and a coach, and then he's an illustrator. I mean, we learned so many wonderful little things about these people that really, you know, provide touchstones for the audience to tap into it, at least one of the stories presented.
Yeah, I was very grateful for how, I guess, down to earth these people were. You know, I was an All-American football player in high school. I played at the University of Nebraska. I trained at a world-class facility called Athletes Performance with one of the guys that's a strength coach at the Denver Broncos, Luke Richardson. He's a world-renowned strength coach. And at a young age, he's a family friend, so I had the opportunity to do that. But at a young age, I had met some of my heroes in sports, and it was a little bit disappointing. You know, there's a saying, don't meet your heroes, because there are a lot of, you know, in society, we put entertainers, actors, musicians, we put athletes. These are our gods of today. So I was a little concerned. I didn't know how some of these athletes would be with me, but everybody was so genuine and humble and open and upfront. I was very surprised, and it was one of my favorite parts of making the movie, because I have friendships that will last a lifetime. And you speak of Tori Washington, and Tori, I really needed Tori at a moment during this film. There was a lot of adversity on this film. There was a lot of things that went wrong, you know, things out of my control, things because I'm a first-time filmmaker. We had some deals fall through with a major distributor, things out of our control, and it was just a trial by fire. And the time that Tori came on board and was going to be a part of it, he was very soothing, very calming. He's backed me up and been such a strong proponent of the movie, and he's just an incredible human being. So it's one of the things about these athletes is they don't misconstrue who they are with what they do. And I think that was one of the most fulfilling things of learning about these people, because too often in society, we fail to understand that it's not what we do that makes us the characters we are. It's our character. It's who we are. So it was a beautiful process and experience.
Well, you know, you mentioned some of the things that failed or, you know, that fell apart during the filming. One of the big questions I have, because you have so much footage in there, of archival footage of football games, of various sporting events. As a first-time filmmaker, what kind of problems did you run into with licensing and getting the rights to use a lot of that footage?
Well, so I did everything as the producer. So I had to contact the NFL. I had to contact IMG and WME. And I guess with no studio backing, with, you know, at the time my website wasn't live for the film. I mean, I built the website. This is truly an independent project. I mean, as low to the ground as it can be, it was definitely built from the ground up. And I don't mean to be corny or cliche, but it took me almost 2.5 years to gain access to NFL footage. It took a lot of emails. With, you know, IMG and WME, it took 6 months of contracting back and forth. It was a tough process, and, you know, I had to go to bat for myself, and my lawyers would be the ones that would say yes or no on some of the points, and it'd just be a lot of in-between time of not getting returns or getting ghosted by people. It was a tough process, but I guess if I make another film, I know how to do it now. I guess I got a very expensive education out of it.
Oh my God! Because as I'm looking at all of this, that's one of the big things I'm thinking of, having gone through this myself in producing films, that is one of the biggest headaches. And you had so much in there, and I'm thinking, oh my God, this poor guy. You really tried.
Well,
this was trial by fire for you, Santino.
Yeah, it was a rough go. It was something that I was not prepared for, but maybe, sometimes I think that could be a good thing, because if you think about it, when there is a pitcher in baseball pitching a perfect game, the other team doesn't want to be the one that doesn't get a hit. So sometimes they'll throw in some young kid that's a DH or just, doesn't know any better, and he swings a bat and he gets a hit. I think that with this whole process, I needed somebody to tell no to my face. If the NFL wasn't going to give me footage, why? What do I need to do? What hoops do I have to jump through? And I was lucky enough that, 2 years into that process, there was a woman at NFL Films named Linda Endress that was very, very kind and willing to listen to me, because they get requests every single day for footage from so many different people, and they have to protect their assets. That's the way it goes. It's not because it's something personal. It's a business, and that's what they have to do to ensure their footage doesn't get in the wrong hands, or it's not used for something it's not supposed to, that offends sponsors and so on and so forth. But once I spoke with Linda Endress, she was key in helping me navigate what needed to be done, and she was willing to listen to me and take the time to, I think, be compassionate. It was lovely meeting her and getting a chance to work with her, because it would have been a dead end if I didn't meet her, and I owe it to her for getting that footage for sure.
Well, since we're almost out of time here right now, I've got to ask you, now that you have, obviously you completed the New York Marathon, yay! One of my brothers actually ran the New York Marathon once, and I said, obviously our genes we're not from the same genetic pool. So I know how difficult it is. I know how hard he trained. So I know, what that meant for you to complete the marathon. But you've also completed the marathon of making a film. Will you now make another film?
Well, film has always been my favorite medium of art. I think that, people don't have time to sit down and read a book about vegan athletes. They don't have time to sit down and read about why we should protect the world from anthropogenic climate change. So for me, I think film is a great medium to provide information in a short period of time that allows people to maybe look deeper into something. So I love film, and I want to continue making films. I don't necessarily know if I'll do probably another documentary, but I want to dig in with my director of photography, Mike Call. We have some ideas we've been fleshing out for feature film. So yeah, I love it, and I want to do it again. I think it's an amazing process. It's a challenging process, and I think filmmaking really taught me a lot about myself. And I think it's a lot like running, where you can't do all the miles in one go. You have to have setbacks. You have to fail. Failure is only failure if you don't learn, and I think that that's the beauty of filmmaking, because it's always a process of learning.
Well, considering what you delivered with From the Ground Up, I can't wait to see what you do with a next film. Thank you. And From the Ground Up, it's on VOD now, so everybody can see it.
Yes, ma'am. iTunes, Amazon, Google Play, and they can rent or buy it. So it's on those platforms, and that's where we're at for now, and hopefully something bigger in the future.
Santino, thank you so much. I got to have Annie hook you up. I want to do a sit-down interview with you, or a phone or off air, and go into more detail about your journey and making the film, because I think it's just fascinating, absolutely fascinating.
Thank you so much, Debbie. Thank you for having me on. It's been an honor and a pleasure to speak with you, and I hope to meet you in person sometime soon, and thank you for giving me this opportunity.
Oh, anytime, and you will come back on my show again.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thanks, Santino. Bye-bye.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.
And that was Santino Panico, writer, director, editor, producer of From the Ground Up. It is, as I said, it's educational, it's entertaining, and you will sit there and you'll think, yeah, well, maybe I actually can go vegan for a day or something. Well, maybe not. But It will make you think. And it's a well-done documentary. But right now, we have two other very special people as we welcome the wonderful Dana Nachman and Don Hardy. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Debbie. How are you?
I am fine. I am so thrilled to have you guys on the show. I mean, Dana, I don't know if you remember, but I moderated a Q&A at ArcLight with you for Bat Kid.
I do. That was so much fun.
It was so much fun. And I didn't think you could top Bat Kid for cuteness and wonderful stuff. And then you come up with Pick of the Litter with the cutest little puppies you've ever seen in your life. And you tug at the heartstrings. You guys know how to make documentaries. There's just no doubt about it.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. That's so kind.
This is, it's like you want to reach through the screen and you want to grab each one of these puppies and you want to take them and you don't want to let go. I watched this with one of my cats laying on top of me, watching with me. And he was a cat that, and I so related to these people that take these puppies and start working with them and with their social skills, because when I got him, he was a tiny little baby. I watched him be born, and the vet needed somebody to foster. And I said, yeah, and she said it was only for a couple weeks. And then it was, there was still an outbreak of rhinovirus at the animal hospital. She could keep him for a few weeks more. Yeah, no problem. By then, it's like, he's not going back. And he's been with me for almost 17 years now. So I know.
I mean, you wonder how these people do it. They give them up, but I know it's for such a good cause.
Oh, what led you guys? This is so not a typical story. This is not something that's in the mainstream. This is not like a one-time event like Bat Kid that might be happening. This is Guide Dogs for the Blind. We're used to every Christmas we get the charitable donation envelope in the mail with some Christmas cards that, they hope you'll send a donation back, and you get these Christmas cards you can send out to people. And they always have beautiful painted little Labradors on them. It's not it's not the kind of film that it just pops into your head. So where did this start with you guys?
Don, you want me to take it?
Sure.
Well, Don and I used to work at NBC here in the San Francisco Bay Area, and there's a big school here, and we did several stories on them. I don't know, I remember like 3 or 4. And every time we did them, it was so much fun, and it was just a little bit, you know, on television news, you just get a couple minutes, and the stories were always so emotional, whether it was a graduation where the dog makes it all the way and then gets paired with a person who's blind, or the puppy raisers who have to raise them and then give them up. It was always so compelling, and Don and I are both huge dog people, and so it was fun to be able to spend time with dogs, especially such amazing dogs, during our workday. And so I think it started there, and then over the years, my mom was a newspaper journalist, and she had done just what we did in a newspaper series where she followed a litter of puppies from the day they were born to if they made the cut. And so that seemed like a really good, obvious kind of narrative arc to be able to tell. And I think both Don and I love competition movies, and so this was a really fun competition movie. That's kind of how it started. And
I love that you called it a competition movie, because as you're watching, the way you have structured this and the way you have edited the film, this is very much a competition. Okay, who's better at crossing the street? Who's better at stopping? All right, he's eating the leash. He's not going to make the cut. And you watch this and you start rooting for each one of them in a different capacity until we start seeing what happens. Potomac falls out. And it's like, then I was telling my sound engineer before the show, I said, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what happened to him? What happened to him? And you are so invested as you're watching this competition as to, okay, who's still in the race? Who's still going forward? Who is actually going to get to be placed with a person? And it's very edge of your seat at moments. I got to tell you.
Oh, thank you.
That's
I think
awesome.
that while we were making it, we definitely felt that way, that there was so many twists and turns that we never saw coming when we set off to make this, and we hope that translates to the film and to the audience, that uncertainty and really just the stakes and how hard it is for one of these dogs to really make it all the way.
I had no idea of this process.
And we were worried also that, God forbid, none of these dogs made it. We're like, what's going to happen to our film after 2 years of this? So we were trying not to think about that.
Because you start the film and you've got the slide up there. There are 800 puppies that are born to be groomed and trained to be guide dogs. Only 300 make it. And right away, and you're in your head, you're thinking of the odds, and it's like, oh, we have these 5. We have Patriot, Potomac, Primrose, Poppet, and Phil. And of course, just by the very name of Phil, you're figuring Phil is not going to make the cut. His name has doomed him. Phil is not making. And you keep us on our toes as we're watching these, but also you give a lot of time to the human counterparts too. And you really let us...
we were working on that balance too, because we only met the people who were blind. We only met them at the end, and so it was always a question of how much they would be in the movie. And then so many people touch these dogs' lives throughout, and so we knew the trainers would be in the movie, but we really wanted, as much as we love the dogs and we love dog movies, we want it to be a people movie too. So we really tried to strike that balance.
And you have some really heart-wrenching moments in there when the initial people who are working on social skills with the puppies, when they have to return them or when they're taken away because of behavioral issues, they need somebody tougher to work on. I think one of the most endearing, you see these adults breaking down and crying, but then you see little Oliver as he has to say goodbye to the dog, and he kisses the dog on the head and says, bye. And it's just it's so matter of fact.
Yeah, that kid's had a lot of dogs. I think they have one now too. They get one every year, so maybe he's getting used to it. I don't know, but I think the adults seem like they never get used to it.
The dogs really become such a part of these everybody's families, and just like your pet dog at home, it's really hard to make that sacrifice to give them back, to return them, and send them off on. I think as one of the puppy raisers in the film says, they get them through high school and then they have to return them to campus to work with the professional trainers to get them through college. Mm-hmm. And even though they do it year after year, for many of them, it doesn't get easier. And it's a serious volunteer position, that's for sure.
And you hear one of the couples talking about, it's no longer an empty nest, at least not for now. And so that really parlays into that idea of, and it's interesting how you can have a pragmatic outlook like that, but then that doesn't tell your heart. It's that your heart's not listening to that pragmatism. Because this was stretched out over such a period of time, and you've got 5 dogs, and you have more puppy raisers than that, because as we saw, some of them get passed off to a second, to see if they can whip them into shape before they go back to campus. How logistically challenging was that for you? And to divvy up the time and when you were going to see each one. And of course, like W.C. Fields said, animals and kids, no. So you've got the antics of the puppies to deal with as well. So how logistically did you work this out?
It was very challenging. I think it was one of those things that, you have this idea and you go forward with it and you think, oh, how hard could it be? And then once we were in it, I remember at the beginning, I was keeping a spreadsheet of the dogs and where they were and who the names of their handlers were. And I couldn't even keep track of who was where, because they were in Oregon, LA, and the Bay Area, and they were just everywhere. And it was very, very hard to keep track of them. And then it sort of got easier, but we always kind of felt like we were behind the 8 ball. Like things would be changing very quickly, and it was hard to keep up with them. And Don took so many flights to Oregon; it was ridiculous. I mean, I feel like he was in Oregon every single day. Oh yeah, and there was one in Washington State.
I was definitely
it was
working on my frequent flyer miles.
I was going to say.
Yeah, it was a little nuts. It was a little nuts, and we thought, like, it's kind of those things where you are kind of glad you didn't know, or you might not have done it, ahead of time. It was a little nutty, to be honest.
Oh, but it's puppies. You would have done it anyway, even if you knew.
Exactly.
It's puppies. You would have done it.
It's true. And then it actually got even more difficult once some of the dogs, the ones that make it to this point, go back for the real training at the Guide Dogs campus. And even though Guide Dogs for the Blind is based in Marin County, it's close to where Dana and I live, we were there virtually every day going through the training experience with them because we just weren't sure what were the most important parts and what weren't. And we were strategizing the best we could to be economical with our shooting. Still, though, at some point you just sort of resign yourself, like, I'm going to go shoot again today because I just don't know. And I think we ended up with around 120 shoots for the film, which far surpasses anything we've done previously.
Wow. How many hours did that translate into for editing?
Somewhere around 200.
Well, that's not as bad as I thought it would be. But then when do the two of you start the editing process? Because you don't know how this story is going to play out until the very bitter end. So do you start editing early on to develop the through line and start crafting that pacing and going between this pup and that pup and this home and that home? Or do you wait until you have all the footage?
No, we didn't wait till all the footage. I'm trying to remember. I think we started in February. Does that sound right, Don? To edit this past February.
I believe it was around February.
Or maybe
February,
January.
And we took a bit of a different strategy than before in that typically Dana will sort of transcribe and then do a paper edit of the film. So I get a script and then I'll dig in. But because there was so much, Dana did a lot of the laying it out actually in the edit bay. So she got her editing chops in gear on this one. And it really helped because then by the time it made it to me, a lot of choices had already been made, and I think we could move along a little bit quicker. But it was an extensive edit for sure.
So who had the final word?
Yeah, and we didn't have to really know who went the distance to start it because, in certain spots we might have wanted to know, but, most of the time for the first basically year and a half, when the dogs are for the first 2 months, they're at the facility with their mom, and then they go out for about 14 to 16 months to their puppy raisers, and those parts we're going to be in regardless. But then every time there would be challenges with them, we'd have to shoot that, and we'd edit those out also. So really, it was just the last part of the film that we held to edit. So we really could do the first, basically, like 2/3 of the movie ahead of time. Yeah.
I'm curious about everybody coming into this. What was it like getting releases and consent for all of these people? Because I know that also comes into play as, Guide Dogs is giving puppies to people you want to film. What if the people don't want to be filmed?
Wait, we need releases? Oh, no, we got them. Just kidding. Wait, what? I think, so we had interviewed 3 different schools before we went into this. Some were for the blind, some were for other disabilities. And the reason we chose Guide Dogs for the Blind was because they had a pretty big infrastructure. Because it is a pain to have a documentary crew around you and dealing with all these logistics. And we felt like they would have a good enough infrastructure to help us do this in the right way, because it was a lot of logistics. And part of that is the releases. I have no idea how many people they went to that said no before we got our list of people that said yes. But they were already approved to go out to people who would be in the film before they would. And so we were a little nervous at the end because if some dogs made it, I won't say who or what, the question of which person who would receive the dog was a little touchy because these have to go, the dogs have a perfect fit with a person. And if that person didn't want to be in the film, that would be a big problem. But luckily, I think a lot of the people who work with guide dogs for the blind, whether they receive a dog or they volunteer with the organization, they really are very committed to the organization and are so thankful for everything that they do that I think my experience is they've been very happy to participate in the film because I think it'll get the word out about how amazing these dogs are and how helpful dogs can be to people.
I mean, what we see, as the dogs go through their paces and go through their training. I mean, these dogs are better behaved than most adults out there.
Yes.
It's just incredible to watch them. I know when I was in college, there was actually a blind student, and she had her guide dog with her at all times, and one of the sweetest Labradors in the world, absolutely adorable. But that dog was on command, sit down, heel, knew the campus. I think the dog knew the campus better than most of the students. To watch this training process, having seen the end result personally, and then now seeing this process, I am just astounded, absolutely astounded.
I know it is shocking.
I think we were when we were out there
filming
filming too. It really. We both have pet dogs that, maybe can do a little sit, maybe a little stay, but that's about it. And then to be able to see what these dogs can do and the way they really, once they get back for the formal guide work training, how you see them taking the lead and really guiding their person. That was, it was just remarkable. I think now and then we see it on the street if we happen to pass a person who is blind that is working with a dog, but to see that transformation was something very special.
And you didn't know anything about this, and you had not witnessed this during the days that you were with NBC in San Francisco, correct? You did stories on the dogs, but you didn't know about this process, or had not seen it?
Not much, really. I mean, I don't think we ever did anything on the training. We did stuff on the graduation and then the kind of the family members, but I don't remember ever looking into the training at all. Mm-hmm. So no, we didn't know.
Not really. It was kind of the way TV news is, where you get in, you tell a quick story and get out. It's not like being there every day and seeing it from beginning to end like this.
What was the most challenging aspect of bringing this film to life for the two of you? I can imagine you may have had an easier time of people wanting to pony up money for cute puppies. But so I don't know.
I wonder if Don and I will have the same answer. I think we will. Do you want to go first and I'll tell you if it was the same?
Well, there was a lot of hard bits to this, but I think I did a lot of the shooting, and it was coming up with a way to actually keep pace with the dogs and their trainers without being disruptive, which was a big part of what we wanted to do here. We didn't want to intrude on the training process because that's the most important thing. So we had to come up with a camera system that would allow us to keep up, be steady, and capture things as they were happening. And quickly realized that the big camera we normally shoot with that goes on my shoulder was not going to be the way to do it. So I think for me, that was the biggest challenge.
And what did you end up shooting with?
We found this wonderful little camera made by Sony called an A6500. It's basically a little, almost a pocket-sized camera, but it takes very good 4K footage, and it has also has great autofocus, which typically we don't use, but in this case needed to. So we took that, put it on a little handheld gimbal thing, kind of like the stuff in a drone that makes footage look steady, and then clip that to the end of a monopod so that we could pick it up really high in the air or really down low at dog level and be able to navigate the streets without, barely running into things, we'll say that. But the dogs didn't seem to mind it, and we were able to get the shots we needed.
And what would you say was the most challenging thing, Dana?
I was going to say the same thing. And just the only other tidbit was they walk so darn fast. So not only do you have to keep be there with the camera, and I think you probably noticed in the film that Don's really close to them. He's really up, and they were walking very, very fast. So just keeping up, it was really tough. And that's so important. Nothing's more important than the actual shots. So it was hard.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned how fast they walk, because I was watching that too, and it's like, I don't walk that fast unless I'm in a dark alley in Center City, Philadelphia at 2 o'clock in the morning.
The best tidbit you have to know about this is, so one day they asked us if we would want to go under blindfold and try it ourselves. So one of the dogs took us out, and we hobbled down the street so slowly, literally shuffling down the street because we were so scared. And it was amazing to see what how courageous the trainers are and the people who receive these dogs are when they walk just full speed ahead, because we were very slow and lame.
Oh my God, that would be me if I had a blindfold on. I can trip and fall just walking upstairs. So, if I start hastening a pace somewhere, it's going to be, especially if I can't see, it's going to be problematic.
Yeah, it was humbling.
Oh my God.
It was humbling and terrifying at the same time, and gave me even more respect.
And we have video. We shot it, but we'll never release it.
You won't put it in as a DVD extra when you go to DVD?
Maybe.
But before we get to DVD, though, somebody has a big premiere coming up.
Woo! Yeah. Yes.
Tonight, is it not?
No, it is Friday night.
Friday night, you're opening Slam Dance.
Yes, we're so excited.
Fantastic honor.
How exciting is that to not only get into Slam Dance because of the very nature of the festival, but to be the opening night film?
Well, it's such a thrill, really. You make these films, you hope they resonate. You put them out there for film festivals to judge. You don't know what they're looking for exactly. And so to find out that we were, accepted to, really very early on in our try, we just finished it, is so thrilling. And then to be the opening night, it's awesome. And our film, That Kid, had been there for its premiere 3 years ago, and it couldn't have been better. So it's so nice to know it's going to have a life. We're thrilled.
Now, even though the film is just premiering, having this world premiere on Friday night, have you submitted, or any potential distributors seen it as yet?
I
believe a few have.
Yeah, I don't have the details
on
that, but Don, do you know
at this point, but.
Well, no, you don't want to divulge those yet. I'm just curious, because I can't imagine you not getting a distribution deal with this film.
Ooh, thank you. Knock on wood, knock on wood. Yeah, our agents showed it to some distributors last week, and they said the reaction was great, but we didn't get any details yet. We should write to them and find out.
Because any distributor that looks at this film and doesn't pick it up, I question their mindset. Because this is...
Oh, thank you. Can we have them call you?
Of course. Pick of the litter. It is so engaging. It's charming, but it's fascinating, and it's so interesting to learn about this whole process of becoming a guide dog. But it just grabs your heart. You grab the heart. You don't let go from beginning to end. You got another winner on your hand.
Oh, thank you. All right, without any spoilers, do you have a favorite
really
dog?
I have to say I do have a favorite dog. Phil.
Okay, That's Don's favorite, right, Don?
And who's your...
Yeah, Phil and I had a very special bond. He's a wonderful, wonderful dog.
Okay, and who's your favorite, Dana?
My favorite is Patriot.
I can see that. I love Patriot.
I love Patriot.
I love Patriot's story. I really love Patriot's story.
Yes, I just loved him from the get-go. He reminded me of my old dog. I love him.
I have to say that watching Patriot's story play out, I was sitting there and tears started rolling down my cheeks. It was so touching. It was so touching.
Oh, it's wonderful.
At that one moment with that phone call, that was like...
Yep.
I'm getting all teary just sitting here remembering it. I got to tell you this. Oh, God.
It's a good one.
It's a good one. Well, unfortunately, guys, we are totally out of time today. We're actually already, I'm already a minute and 40 seconds over for the whole show. And Pam's in the Pam's in the booth. She doesn't care. She's fine. She enjoys puppy stories. But I can't thank you guys enough for coming on the show to talk about Pick of the Litter. And I am just so thrilled for you. Opening night at Slam Dance on Friday night. Do you know if tickets are still available?
I believe the first showing on Friday night is sold out, but there's a second showing I don't think is.
Well, everybody needs to go to slamdance.com. I think it's slamdance.com.
Yes.
Yes, everybody needs to go there to get tickets to see Pick of the Litter. Dana, Don, thank you so, so much. This has been so fun.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you having me.
Great. Thanks for having us.
Oh, anytime. And I hope you'll come back on the show again. Like when you get a distribution deal.
Absolutely.
Like when you get a distribution deal.
Ooh, yeah.
Yes. Yes. All right. Have fun Friday night. And,
Thank you.
Oh, fingers crossed, paws crossed, and everything else for Pick of the Litter. Thanks, guys.
Thanks
you.
So much, thanks for having us.
Bye-bye. And that was Don Hardy and Dana NACHMAN, directors, editors, writers, producers of Pick of the Litter. World premiere at Slam Dance Friday night. Tickets available. Go to slamdance.com. You don't want to miss this film. We are out of time before Pam shoots me here. So, that's it for today. I'm Debbie Elias. This is I can't even talk today. I'm so excited about puppies. This is Behind the Lens.